are coming on the air with dangerous, record-setting rain, making for nearly biblical scenes in Florida. I-95 shut down, an island cut off from the mainland, and our reporter on the ground with the forecast showing no sign of a slowdown. We're going to take you there live in just a second. Plus, what the Fed's newest move late today means for your money, as they're holding rates at the highest they've been since Bootylicious was the #1 song in America. Then the huge move from the biggest church group in America, the biggest Protestant group, voting to oppose IVF, and a huge signal of where the conservative movement may be headed next. The domino effect in Washington and beyond. And Olympic dreams dashed for a transgender swimmer whose college wins sparked controversy, why she's been ruled out of the Paris Games. Plus, in tonight's original, the tense fight over what's been dubbed Monkey Town, a primate breeding project pitting researchers against residents. And in our breakdown, the new lawsuit from Elon Musk's former SpaceX staffers and the moment of truth over whether shareholders will sign off on his multi-billion-dollar pay package at his other big company later in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and we are watching tonight an unbelievable amount of rain drowning southern Florida, shutting down part of I-95 with storms and tornadoes sweeping the state. Take a look. This is our reporter's live shot right now. This is live in Aventura. You can see some of those cars. I don't know if you can tell behind that emergency vehicle. Some of those cars, we're told, are actually stuck because the flooding has just gotten higher and higher as the rain has come down. Further north, a reported twister near Jupiter Island is now totally cut off from the mainland because of all the trees like this one down at entrances. On Florida's west coast, look at this. Some streets in Sarasota looking more like rivers. That fire truck is acting like a boat navigating through. That city setting a record for the most rain it's ever gotten in a single hour, more than 8 inches dropping. Flash floods coming with it. You can see some of it here, right? The floods trapping drivers, delaying hundreds of flights, by the way, canceling dozens more flights in the state. Right now, millions of people are under a flood emergency across the southern half of Florida. We're talking cities like Miami, like West Palm Beach, like Marco Island, Fort Myers. No relief expected until at least Friday for most of those spots. Sam Brock is in the thick of it. He is live for us in southern Florida. You know rain down there, Sam, right? Folks in southern Florida know what it's like to have some rain, but this much rain, all of it at once, it's creating a huge problem.
Hallie, good evening. Right now, you can probably hear the thunder in the background as I'm standing here in Aventura. You're going to have to forgive me for a second because I'm having some audio issues at the moment. But let me set the stage for where we are. This flash flood emergency that's ongoing right now, we're right in the middle of that from North Miami all the way up to Dania Beach. Over my shoulder, okay, this is the Aventura Mall. Typically, of course, you see people walking around here shopping with their cars, not stuck in the middle of roadways. The biggest problem right now, the rapidity, just the speed of how much water has come down all day long, Hallie, has stranded cars all over the place. This is actually progress, what I'm showing you over my shoulder right now. I only see one vehicle right around the corner that's got water up to the middle of the wheel. I have seen stranded vehicles all day long on major highways. You're driving around, Hallie, and honestly, it's like waves of water that are rushing towards you. This was going on from 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon today. Everywhere that we went, we saw people literally pulling off the road and staying in turn lanes so that their car didn't get stuck in the middle of the highway as cars around them were getting stranded. And because it's Miami, it was everything from Rolls Royces and BMWs to like service trucks that were sitting there in the middle of the road with nowhere to go. Obviously, we have not heard any reports to this point of any serious injuries. I'm going to walk you in this direction, though, because I just want to, again, set the stage. At this mall, there is a parking garage that I was just standing inside of. The water is inside of the garage. Over my shoulder here, it might be hard to see from this vantage point, but it goes inside there, and the low elevation, such a major problem for this entire area, right? A lot of Miami at large, and I'm right now in the northern part of Dade County, but a lot of Miami is basically at sea level, and beyond just that, underneath the ground, you have limestone, which is porous, and the water table comes up from there. As there is water that is obviously falling at very high rates from the sky, what you get is nowhere to go for any of this flood water. You see a couple of cars over my shoulder here. I don't know what they're doing with the hoods up. Obviously, engines likely dead at this point, but it's sort of a snapshot of the chaos that we've seen, and this is one piece of it here. You can go all the way out to other parts of the state where there was a tornado that struck down, a reported tornado, as you mentioned, in Martin County that has had all sorts of implications. There's some pretty wild video of a man who witnessed this all happening in front of him, to tornado warnings out in Alligator Alley to our west, to just about a foot of rain that came down since, I believe, noon today. You'll have to double check me with our weather team on that one. But somewhere in that vicinity, all in a day. For a vantage point, by the way, in comparison, in Fort Lauderdale, last April when we saw those historic floods, that was basically 2 feet of rain that came down in 12 hours. That is not what we've seen yet. But of course, that's going to be the concern, because this has just been going on and on and on all day, and it just keeps coming down right now. We are hopeful that this population will be able to make it through the next 12 to 24 hours, but we don't even know how much more rain we're going to get. That, of course, is the biggest issue right now. Back to you, Hallie.
Sam Brock, truly, literally in the middle of it there in Aventura. Sam, thank you very much. Get back somewhere dry and maybe switch out your jacket. We appreciate you. Appreciate that reporting. Let's talk about the Fed today, keeping interest rates where they are for now after some new numbers showed inflation slowing down a little. Listen, the markets seem to be liking it. You've got the S&P and the NASDAQ hitting some new records, the Dow down a little, and everybody else reading the tea leaves from the Fed chair on what may come next. Here's Chairman Powell.
We remain committed to bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal and to keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. We understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission.
I want to get to Brian Chung now. And Brian, we talked about it at the top of the show. The Fed is keeping interest rates the highest that they've been since Shrek, the original, was one of the biggest movies in America since 2001, right? They're only forecasting one other rate cut this year. There was a point when we thought maybe there'd be 3. What is going on? And importantly, what does it mean for all of our money?
Yeah, I mean, to that reference just now, it's been many decades since we've seen interest rates this high. And the Federal Reserve did lift them, to be fair, to this level last year. So it's been some time that we've been living in this. But that's the reason why your credit card rates are so high, your auto loan rates are so high, and your mortgage rates are so high. But again, the big story for the Federal Reserve remains this number: inflation, inflation, inflation. Jobs data looks good. We talked about that last Friday. But look, when you talk about prices going up at the store, 3.3%, that's how much more things are expensive now compared to May of last year. The good news is that's a slower pace than the 3.4% we had seen in the April to April period. But again, what do economists want to see us at? They want to see us closer to 2%. That's a reason why you're not hearing Fed officials and Jay Powell say mission accomplished, and you're not hearing it from the Biden administration either. After this report, which was by and large seen as positive, you still have the Biden administration saying prices are still at high levels, but they're welcoming this progress. That's certainly a thread that's going to come into play as we get closer to the election, Hallie.
You were there. Also interesting to hear Chair Powell suggest that he doesn't know why people aren't feeling better about the economy. He pointed to some positive indicators here, but that's been a huge question where you are there in New York, where I am here in Washington, and around the country.
Yeah, and here's the thing is that Jay Powell said in the press conference today, again, the Fed chair, that he doesn't really have any sort of say in telling Americans how they feel about the economy. But look, how they feel about the economy is the price tags that they see at the store on a daily basis. And again, when you look at the inflation report, there are some positive threads. These are monthly changes that you're looking at here. Energy prices did decline between April and May. And there's a lot of interesting research out there, which we could talk about for another day, Hallie, about how oftentimes perceptions of the economy tend to track very closely what gasoline prices do, which is really not in the purview of either the Federal Reserve or you and I. But look, energy prices down 2%, food prices going a little bit sideways, up about 0.1%. But shelter costs, this is another big one, Hallie. Shelter costs up 0.4% between April and May. This has been a big sticking point when you consider that the largest expenditure for most American families is rent. That's a thread that we're going to have to watch as well.
Brian Chung, thank you for breaking it down for us. Appreciate it. Some news from here in Washington out of Capitol Hill, just breaking into us in literally the last couple of minutes here. House Republicans voting to hold the Attorney General in contempt of Congress. So what this means, they're basically asking the Justice Department to pursue a criminal case against the guy who runs the Justice Department. This is after the Attorney General Merrick Garland refused to hand over audio of President Biden being interviewed by the special counsel who was investigating his handling of classified documents. Remember, it was back in February that Robert Hur declined to indict the president, partly because, as he writes in the report, he was concerned that the president would likely present himself to a jury as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. NBC's Sahil Kapoor is following this for us from Capitol Hill. We're just getting in the new reaction now from the Attorney General to this contempt vote against him. Talk us through it.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. We have a number of reactions coming into this vote. It was 216 to 207. Just one Republican defected from his party, Congressman David Joyce of Ohio, and voted with unanimous Democrats in opposing this contempt resolution. And yes, just in the last couple of minutes, we've got reaction from Attorney General Merrick Garland, who says, quote, "It is deeply disappointing that this House of Representatives has turned a serious congressional authority into a partisan weapon." Garland continues, "Today's vote disregards the constitutional separation of powers, the Justice Department's need to protect its investigations, and the substantial amount of information we have provided to the committees." Now, Garland has said that the Justice Department has already released the transcript, the full transcript of President Biden's interviews with the special counsel, and that releasing audio is inappropriate and unnecessary. He and others have suggested that it could be manipulated by Republicans in bad faith for political purposes in ways that does not advance the cause of justice. There's also a May 2024 memo obtained by NBC News from the Office of Legal Counsel that says, consistent with a long-standing position, no U.S. attorney has pursued criminal contempt charges against an executive branch official asserting the president's claim of executive privilege, all of which is to say this is probably going nowhere, but that political fight is intensifying. Speaker Mike Johnson made his case for this contempt resolution earlier today. Let's play what he said.
We can't allow the Department of Justice, an executive branch agency, to hide information from Congress. The best evidence, as Chairman Jordan said, was the audio recordings, because they provide critical insight in what that transcript itself cannot provide. We have to know if the transcript is accurate.
Overly concerned with this.
Now, Congressman Dave Joyce, the one Republican who voted against this, a center-right member from Ohio, said, quote, "As a former prosecutor, I cannot in good conscience support a resolution that would further politicize our judicial system to score political points," unquote. Hallie, that is the one Republican who voted against this.
Super interesting. Sahil Kapoor live for us on the Hill. Thank you. Also, as we were coming on the air, President Biden landing in Italy with one of the goals for him there, trying to figure out a way to get more money to Ukraine. Look at this. This is the president just in the last half hour or so, heading to the G7 summit with his national security advisor on the plane over, telling reporters that these talks and the agreements they hope come from them are meant to send a message to Russia.
If Vladimir Putin thinks that he can outlast the coalition supporting Ukraine, he's wrong. He just cannot wait us out, and this agreement will show our resolve and continued commitment.
Monica Alba is live for us in Italy. She's joining us now. Okay, so there is some agreement between President Biden and the leaders he's meeting with that, you know, taking these Russian assets and using them for the Ukrainian war effort is the move here, but there's a disconnect on how. Walk us through it. What's the big goal? What's the big deliverable, as they say, for President Biden on this trip?
Exactly, Hallie. There's a disconnect in the details of exactly how to do this. So there is that broad agreement that ideally seizing these Russian assets should be a way to try to then help Ukraine continue to fund its defense against Russian aggression. But there's a question about over how long and for how much time, and whether, in effect, this should be a loan to Ukraine. So that's one of the ideas that's being discussed here, something like $50 billion to Ukraine that basically would be the interest from those billions and billions of dollars of those frozen Russian assets. So that's something that the U.S. is essentially proposing and hoping that these other G7 leaders will get on board with. But some of those countries have said essentially that they're a little bit nervous about what kind of a precedent that could set for other currencies in the future or for potential future conflicts. So they still need to get together over these next couple of days and figure out exactly what they're going to commit to as a group. But tomorrow is really going to be all about that show of force for Ukraine, which has been really a message we have seen at so many global summits over the last 2 years since that war began. And tomorrow specifically, President Biden will have a joint press conference with President Zelensky of Ukraine. Hallie.
I mean, so much of this, right, Mon, as you lay out, it's how do they flex against Russia? And part of that involves how do they prevent China from helping Russia? There's some new developments on that today, too.
Yeah, we learned about these additional sanctions, and this is something that happens regularly. The Biden administration is consistently targeting these entities that are, of course, fueling the Russian war machine. But interestingly, today they rolled out these sanctions that actually also go against some China-based companies that are essentially selling semiconductors, the U.S. says, to Russia. So they want to put a stop to that, and they want to be very clear on this messaging. That's another main priority from on this summit that I think you can expect to hear from the president and other world leaders. They like to do this ahead of these summits and roll out these major moves to try to show the kind of larger message they're trying to convey on the world stage, which is what we expect from the president here, now that he's landed in Italy.
There in Bari with him. Monica, thank you very much. Good to see you, man. Speaking of flexes, speaking of Russia, there is a show of force from Moscow tonight with 4 Russian ships arriving in Cuba. Look at them. You're seeing them here pulling into the harbor. Russian officials say these warships did some missile drills in the Atlantic as they made their way to Havana, with more military exercises planned in the Caribbean in the next couple of days. Now, a spokesperson for the U.S. military says they've been actively monitoring the ships, that this is routine, that it's not a direct threat or concern. Ed Augustin is joining us now live from Cuba. Ed, so this may not be a direct threat or a concern, but it is certainly interesting given the location of a few hundred miles off the U.S. coastline and the timing here. Talk us through the message Russia's trying to send.
I think the message is crystal clear, as one military analyst put it the other day. The message that Russia is trying to send to the United States is, from their point of view, you can cause us all sorts of problems in our spheres of influence. You can do huge military drills, like the drill that NATO performed last month with 90,000 soldiers and over 100 tanks. But we can also project power in your backyard. I'm speaking to you from Havana, Cuba. Cuba is only 90 nautical miles from the United States. And, you know, if we're going to think in classic big power terms, solidly, historically at least, in the United States sphere of influence, at least before the Cuban Revolution. So this is tit for tat. Russia, to put it mildly, very, very unhappy about U.S. actions in Ukraine. And given the Biden administration's decision 2 weeks ago to allow some U.S. weapons to hit some Russian targets in Russian territory, this, I think, and most military analysts are interpreting it this way, is a response. We can be a nuisance to you as well.
And Ed, real quick, on the drills that Russia's doing, what do we know more about them? What can we say?
There have been military drills. As this flotilla was crossing the Atlantic, there was artillery fire, there have been simulations, there have been military drills leading up to the flotilla docking in Havana today.
Ed Augustin live for us there in Havana, Cuba. Ed, we're glad to have you. Thank you very much for being with us. Back here at home, a sensational murder trial over the death of a Boston police officer may be in the hands of a jury relatively soon. But first tonight, the lead investigator admitting under oath he called the defendant a whack job. Massachusetts State Trooper Michael Proctor now acknowledging his comments were, in his words, juvenile and unprofessional, but he says they had no influence on the investigation into the death of Officer John O'Keefe. Still, what he said about the defendant, Karen Reed, now raising questions on whether Proctor was biased in his investigation. Reed has pleaded not guilty to murder, second degree, in the 2022 death of her then-boyfriend, Officer O'Keefe. Prosecutors allege she hit him with her car and left him for dead after a night of drinking. Her defense team argues she has been framed in part by law enforcement. Rahima Ellis is joining us now. There's a lot here because it involves the death of an officer outside the home of another officer and this claim of a kind of far-reaching conspiracy against Karen Reed. Help us understand it.
Yeah, it's kind of messy, Hallie. And let me take you back to 2 years ago before we get into some of those details. It was a cold, snowy day in January 2 years ago up in the Boston area. And police allege that Officer John O'Keefe and Karen Reed, their relationship had been rocky. But they went out for drinks, as you point out. Afterwards, she leaves him at the home of another officer in a suburb outside of Boston, a retired Boston police sergeant. And later, police say they found John O'Keefe, that officer, and shortly after she had left him there, and he was pronounced dead. The cause of death was blunt force trauma and hypothermia. They said, as you point out, that she had hit him with her car and left. They also say that they found that a portion of her tail light was missing and some pieces were found in the yard of that officer's whose home she had dropped him off in. Now, you point out she alleges that she is innocent in all of this. This trial, now starting 2 years later, it's been on since April. There have been more than 50 witnesses called, and the defense is saying that there's some sort of cover-up going on here. In part, they say, because a lot of people, they knew each other. They also say that some of those messages that the lead investigator was pointing out, was sharing with other people, included words like, cops are involved here. We should wrap this up quickly. Hallie?
Tell us more about those inflammatory texts, those comments there from the investigator who said, you know, Karen Reed's a whack job, and some of these messages to friends and to other police officers. What effect could that have on the case?
The legal community in Boston is saying that it could have an enormous effect, raising questions and doubts about how this investigation was conducted. Because that lead investigator, State Trooper Michael Proctor, he was saying certain things, and he had to read these vulgar texts on the witness stand where he was talking about Karen Reed, and he was exchanging these messages with family and friends and even his bosses, using vile words to describe her body, her appearance, and calling her names, as you pointed out. And he admitted that the messages were juvenile, unprofessional, and regrettable, but he says that they did not impact his investigation. The defense, however, strongly disagrees with that and thinks that there might be some sort of a cover-up here in order to find someone to hold responsible for Officer John O'Keefe's murder, and that Karen Reed is the one they're holding responsible. Clearly, it's now going to be up to the jury before too long to decide whether or not Karen Reed is the right person who's on trial.
Rahima Ellis, thank you very much for being all over that one for us tonight. Appreciate it. Coming up, the push in Congress to protect IVF nationally as the country's biggest Protestant group, one that's super important politically, votes to oppose in vitro. Plus, New York City police investigating after reports of vandals targeting the homes of the Brooklyn Museum's Jewish leaders, why they think there may be a pattern. More on that in a sec. Police in New York now investigating what local leaders call an abhorrent act of anti-Semitism after the homes of the Brooklyn Museum's Jewish leaders were vandalized. You see some of it here. The door covered in red paint, one banner calling the museum's director a white supremacist Zionist. Police say they're looking for more than a dozen people who could be involved. Antonia Hilton is following this one for us. And Antonia, the NYPD says these incidents may be part of a bigger pattern that they're seeing?
That's right, Hallie. They're investigating this, what happened last night, but also a series of incidents that they say have happened all over the city, not just relegated to one borough or one community here. They are looking at and tracking this activity that often involves the use of red paint, red spray paint, the kind of banners that you saw in those images there, and they've happened in properties all around New York. And they're looking for the suspect that they believe could be connected to what happened, not just to the director, the leader of the Brooklyn Museum named Ann Pasternak, but also several Jewish members of the leadership team of the board there. The mayor, Eric Adams, released a statement this morning, not mincing words, saying this is not peaceful protest or free speech. This is a crime, and it's overt, unacceptable anti-Semitism. Other leaders, including the governor and local Brooklyn-level leaders, have released similar statements as well today. You know, this is really reflective of the fact that these cultural institutions have become sites of conflict as the war rages on. Just days ago, the Brooklyn Museum was the site of another protest, and at one point, the protesters, demonstrators actually entered the Brooklyn Museum. They occupied it for a period of time. They unfurled banners. They marched and chanted until the NYPD came and responded. And while we don't know that that group is necessarily connected to what happened here last night, what we do know is this has really become a center of this kind of activity here, and the tensions abroad very much hitting here at home. And with Jewish community members and leaders here in New York saying that they're quite shaken up and fearful about all of this, as the ADL says they're seeing these incidents really balloon across the country, and New York is no exception, Hallie.
Antonia Hilton, thank you very much for that. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, police in Illinois say 3 sheriff's deputies are in good condition at the hospital after a shooting. They were making an emergency visit to a house after getting a call about somebody who had threatened both suicide and homicide. The suspect was also shot and taken to the hospital. Number 2, Johnson & Johnson, huge settlement, agreeing to pay $700 million to settle an investigation by more than 40 states and D.C. They were all looking into the company's marketing of baby powder and some other talc-based products blamed for allegedly causing cancer. J&J is accused of misleading customers into believing that products were safe. Now, in this settlement, the company did not admit wrongdoing. The French president says he's suspending plans for those controversial voting reforms in New Caledonia we've been telling you about. Remember, critics said those plans would further marginalize indigenous voters. This led to weeks of deadly unrest in the territory. Emmanuel Macron says he's suspending this legislation to give every chance to dialogue, in his words, and to return to order. Number 5, Crayola is looking for the 5th grader who made this portrait of Nicole Kidman more than 2 decades ago. Putting this up on Instagram, saying they want to return it to the original artist. So if anybody knows a Rachel from Temple, Texas, she was in 5th grade 2 decades ago, do the math, hit her up. Crayola's looking for it. When we come back, why a beef between a judge and Young Thug's lawyer could throw a wrench into his already chaotic trial. Plus, some incredible video of a fan running onto the field at a Cincinnati Reds game, what we now know about the charges against him. So the country's biggest Protestant group voting tonight against using IVF in a new resolution. We're talking about the Southern Baptist Church, saying that frozen embryos, like those used in IVF, are children. This is a big sign of where conservative evangelicals may take the fight over reproductive rights next. A fight that may come to a head in Washington, too, with Democrats getting ready to vote to protect IVF to put Republicans in a tough spot, considering polls show that in vitro is broadly popular across party lines, across various segments of the population. Julie Sirkin is joining us now. So, Julie, talk us through this vote on IVF by the Southern Baptist Convention. It seems like more than anything, it is a major signal of where this fight's going.
Yeah, not only a signal, Hallie, but also yet another example and exactly why Democratic lawmakers behind this push to codify protections for IVF into law tell me they need to act, that Congress needs to act. Look at this.
Julie Eshelman and her husband, who's in the Army Reserves, had their 2-year-old daughter through in vitro fertilization.
When we moved from Washington to Arizona and from Arizona to Illinois, we didn't have to worry about whether we'd be able to access IVF.
They kept their frozen embryos in storage during deployment. But after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, everything changed.
Are we going to be able to access IVF in our new state? Are we going to have to pay to travel out of state?
Alabama was their next potential destination, and the state Supreme Court at the time effectively banned the procedure, deeming frozen embryos are babies.
Our military families don't have control over where they live.
IVF restarted in the state, but not before causing a political firestorm, making access to the procedure a key issue. That's why a trio of Democratic senators pushed for a vote to protect the procedure nationally and broaden eligibility for service members. For Tammy Duckworth, it's personal.
I struggled for 10 years post my deployment to Iraq, trying to start a family, and it was only through the miracle of IVF that I have my 2 little girls.
Their bill would prevent states from imposing IVF restrictions, expand access for service members and veterans, and require insurance plans to cover fertility treatments.
It's not about the petty politics. It's about the people in our communities that are really struggling.
But just like Democrats' efforts to protect access to contraception, this bill will likely fail.
Some people are looking at these attempts by Democrats and are calling them messaging bills. What's your response to that?
They're a message to the American people that you have a right to IVF. They're a message to the American people that we believe Roe should be the law of the land. They're a message to women in this country that they have the right to make their own health care decisions.
The majority of Republicans say they too support IVF, but will probably oppose the Democrats' bill, saying it goes too far.
I clearly support IVF. I have an ad supporting IVF. I have a daughter going through IVF.
Alabama Senator Katie Britt, outspoken after her state's actions earlier this year.
We strongly support continued nationwide access to in vitro fertilization.
Trying to pass her bill with Senator Ted Cruz tonight. It would withhold key funding for states that ban IVF. But it says nothing about potential legal consequences of discarding non-viable embryos essential to the procedure. But Democrats blocking it.
That's why I object.
Their bill is very dangerous.
And is a step backwards.
If Congress can't find a solution, Julie's family has a lot to think about.
And that could mean that my husband would have to leave the service. Which sounds like a really tough decision. Yeah. I mean, he's been in 14 years. You know, I am so proud of the work that he does for our country.
Julie, you hear, and in those conversations that you had, especially with her, the stakes of this, the stakes of what's happening where you are on Capitol Hill. So what is next then? Is this just a function of waiting until the election in November to see who ends up in the White House, where this fight goes?
Well, unfortunately for women like Julie, unfortunately, yes, that is exactly what is happening here. I asked the Democratic senators this very question yesterday. I said, with the Democratic president in the White House, with Democrats in control of the Senate, is this really your last best shot? And they said, yes, it is. And that is only emboldened by this text I got literally a couple of seconds ago from Katie Britt's office. They circulated a statement that we received first, signed by all Republican senators, nearly all, if not one lacking. It says in part, quote, that this attempt by Democrats, this IVF bill is nothing more than, quote, a partisan campaign of false fear-mongering intended to mislead and confuse the American people. They go on to say that IVF is legal across the country, although we have seen attacks to it, including what happened today, that vote from the Southern Baptist Church leaders that you've mentioned there at the top, Hallie. So certainly this is a very live issue, and the two sides could not be more far apart.
Yeah, a lot of developments on IVF today. Julie Sirkin, we're glad to have you covering all of it there from Washington. Appreciate it. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day. And because it's tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Western Bureau, folks in parts of Colorado are being told to evacuate because of wildfires there. Look at that, all that smoke. The Forest Service says it's burned through nearly 200 acres in the span of like 3 hours. Fortunately, officials say there's been no reports of anybody getting hurt or any building damage. Out of our Midwest Bureau, look at this, a baseball fan flipping out on the field. That's right. Running out there during the Reds game last night, doing a little backflip situation before an officer tases him to stop him. The 19-year-old is now facing multiple charges. Can't do that. Also out of our Western Bureau, Yellowstone National Park reporting the birth of a very rare white buffalo. It comes after an intense winter last year, driving thousands of buffalo to lower elevations, leading to the death of more than 1,000 of them. But a Native American tribe says that this fulfills a prophecy, signaling better times ahead. Now to the longest criminal trial in Georgia's history that could be heading totally off the rails after the judge sentenced a famous rapper's loyal to jail time, after a viral moment rocketed this long-running case back into the headlines. It all stems from a beef between Young Thug's attorney and the judge in the case. That's the judge there. After the judge held a closed-door meeting with one of the prosecution's star witnesses. Now, the lawyer, the defense lawyer, Brian Steele, he had a real problem with that. He said in court that the defense team should have been there, or at least should have been told about the meeting. And that's when things really blew up, with the judge slamming Steele, demanding how he even found out about the meeting in the first place. Listen.
Now, how did you get that information supposedly from my chambers? Did somebody tell you?
I'm not. You should have told me.
Sir, I'm going to hold you in contempt if you don't tell me who tell me who this information was coming from.
I don't want to be held in contempt. Well, I'm not answering that question.
You heard it there. Young Thug's lawyer didn't give in, didn't reveal a source, so the judge in the case found him in contempt, had him arrested. You see him here. He's taking off his jacket, taking off his tie before he's getting walked out by an officer. And in another now everywhere moment online, Steele says if he has to report to jail, he wants to get locked up with his client so they can keep working the case. Young Thug, real name Jeffrey Williams, is facing charges he led an Atlanta-based criminal gang and oversaw a conspiracy to commit murder, armed robbery, and deal drugs. NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos is following this one for us. I'm going to ask you to put on your defense attorney hat here. Who is out of line? Is it the judge? Is it the attorney?
Unfortunately, Hallie, my defense attorney hat is on way too tight all the time. I'm probably biased here, but this seems to be such a clear case of right and wrong in that the attorney is right, the judge is wrong. And here's why. Even if this ex parte meeting was appropriate, which I can't see how it was, and ex parte means it's out of the hearing of other people. Other people were excluded, namely the defense. It was apparently between the judge and the witness and the state, the prosecutors. That's what I'm understanding. If that's the case, if I'm a defense attorney in that case, I've got a real problem with that. And so did this defense counsel. And instead of saying, hey, explaining the judge why he had this meeting or explaining what happened, he instead says, who told you about that? and then jailed him for not revealing his sources. So, I mean, even if the underlying ex parte meeting was acceptable and proper, the whole "where did you hear that? I'm going to jail you unless you tell me who told you this," that just seems inappropriate as well to me.
This has really blown up. I mean, the moment where he takes off his jacket and tie is everywhere. The moment where he says, well, then put me in a cell with my client while I'm serving my time on the weekends for this contempt charge. Is it possible that there could be a mistrial because of this moment, because of what the judge did, because of all this?
Yes, and the judge isn't likely to grant that mistrial. After all, it would be an implication that he did something wrong. Yeah. But on appeal, this is probably going to be a major issue. You know, there's a lot of crazy stuff that's been going on in this trial. This may be the craziest. But again, even if the underlying ex parte meeting was somehow acceptable, this whole fiasco of jailing the attorney, because how can the defendant proceed if his attorney is in jail? Yes, he's in on the weekends, but he was taken out of court that day. There's a lot of really problematic issues cropping up as a result of the judge's insistence on jailing one of the defendant's chosen counsel.
What's interesting here, and part of why this case initially caught my attention as, you know, a political reporter here in Washington, is that the charges Young Thug faces are based on the same criminal racketeering law that former President Trump is facing in his own Georgia election interference case. And if you look at Young Thug's trial so far, we've seen a 10-month jury selection for this, a list of 400 potential witnesses, a schedule that one of the attorneys said could push this whole trial into 2027. Is it your sense that this perhaps may be a blueprint for the former president's case, if and when that finally gets going?
Yes, and remember, the decision to bring these charges against YSL and the charges against Donald Trump were made by the same district attorney, who has made the choice in each of these cases to bring sweeping charges against a large number of defendants, probably hoping that some of them would plead out, and that's happened in both cases. It's happened in the YSL case. Quite a few defendants have pleaded out. But this is a really complex case, and it's going to last years. So Donald Trump's case is probably going to take just as long, or at least close to as long. It's chaos down there in Fulton County.
Danny Savallo, super interesting. Thank you so much for being there for us for that analysis. Appreciate it. Also tonight, a major setback for transgender swimmer Lia Thomas that probably means the end of any hopes of her making next month's Olympics in Paris, according to multiple reports. And even as we've been on the air, she's got a new statement out calling this deeply disappointing. A panel of 3 judges dismissed her case because they say she doesn't have any standing to appeal a policy from World Aquatics that essentially bans trans athletes from competing in men's or women's competitions. Something she says is discriminatory. We've reached out to World Aquatics, to USA Swimming for comment. We have not yet heard back. Maura Barrett joins us now. So we know, Maura, that Lia Thomas is now out with a statement from her attorney. Tell us more about that and where this goes from here.
Well, Hallie, this essentially is going to block any future of Lia Thomas competing in women's events. You'll remember back in 2022, after she won the NCAA championship, the World Aquatics Association, essentially the governing body of any international swimming, put into place this ban that said any trans women that have gone through young male puberty cannot compete in women's events. The same does not apply to trans men and competing in male events, I should note, but this essentially blocks off any opportunity for inclusivity, despite the organization saying that that's what they're doing. They have this open category that trans women can swim in, but not applicable to all events. And so Thomas had challenged this decision, calling it invalid, unlawful, and discriminatory. And today, after the ruling was dismissed, she released a statement from her attorney saying that the decision is deeply disappointing. Blanket bans preventing trans women from competing are discriminatory and deprive us of valuable athletic opportunities that are central to our identities. The CIS decision should be seen as a call to action to all trans women athletes to continue to fight for our dignity and human rights. And now her success in past events has also made her a target, as we've seen from right-wing media. We already saw some reaction from competitors, other swimmers that she used to swim against, celebrating the decision, also misgendering her in some of those posts. And so obviously this is such a hot-button topic that has been sweeping the country, especially as we talk about the legislation introduced to ban trans athletes in sports, along with the bans on gender-affirming care. And so this is just the latest iteration of that and what the potential of inclusion for trans athletes in sports might look like, Hallie.
Maura Barrett, thank you very much for that. Coming up, some tensions in a town in Georgia, literally over monkey business. What our team found when they went there in the original. To tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tomorrow, a Georgia court's considering a case that could topple a huge monkey breeding project that has folks in a small city there up in arms. Basically, there's a plan to breed 30,000 monkeys for medical research. Researchers say they need it to make scientific breakthroughs. But folks in town say no way. And they won't let the monkeys on their turf without a fight. Here's Yasmin Vasugian.
Soon, a small Georgia city could have twice as many monkeys as people if a massive breeding facility housing 30,000 long-tailed macaques comes to town. And some residents of Bainbridge, Georgia, are not happy about it.
We're looking at a jungle, noise, stink.
The Reynolds' home borders the land where the facility will be built.
This is my home here, and it's approximately 400 feet from the monkey house that will be over here.
City officials think the $400 million project run by a company called Safer Human Medicine will be an economic boon. Rick McCaskill helped broker the deal.
It's a tremendous investment, and it's a tremendous amount of good paying jobs.
When lifelong resident June Faircloth found out about the plan, she was stunned.
To me, it feels like somebody's going to drop a bomb right in the middle of everything that we've worked and built. We can't sit back and let it happen.
She and some others coordinated with PETA.
There's a monkey facility that's trying to be established, and we're going to make sure that it doesn't happen.
Armed with signs and pins and flyers, June and others set out to stop the monkey farm, organizing online and in person.
Now a future monkey farm could be my neighbor.
They've got a long list of fears, like monkeys escaping, which has occasionally happened at other breeding facilities here in the United States, as well as river contamination and disease. Safer Human Medicine declined interview requests, responding over email that all waste will be contained in its facilities and sent to the city wastewater treatment plant. It also says most noise will stay within the facility and there will not be a noticeable smell coming from it.
Is it possible to miss diseases they might be carrying?
Absolutely.
Ed Newcomer, a former special agent for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, tells us inspections are mostly paperwork.
A Fish and Wildlife Service law enforcement inspector will try to do a physical inspection of the primates just to make sure the numbers are correct, the ages look appropriate, and if there's any evidence that they're, wild caught when they're declared as captive.
Captive monkeys are preferred for research. Wild monkeys can carry viruses like herpes B. Safer Human Medicine says it will not be using wild-caught animals. It says the monkeys will come from breeding facilities in Asia, but did not specify where. Long-tailed macaques are native to Southeast Asia, but for a while, the U.S. got many long-tailed macaques from China, which imported them from other countries, then exported them. But in 2020, it cut off its long-tailed macaque exports, something researchers say contributed to a monkey shortage here in the U.S. and said the cost of monkeys soaring.
This is a business effort to try to capitalize on that shortage.
While non-human primates make up less than 1% of animals in biomedical research, monkey studies have helped develop COVID vaccines and a drug now used for kidney transplants. In research studies, they are sometimes put to death.
It's a real tragic life for these primates. They may live their entire life moving from one research project to the other, being exposed to pathogens, having experiments done on them, being poked and prodded. It makes you wonder whether it's better for them to be euthanized after their first experiment or go through a life of torture.
Safer Human Medicine's not the only one trying to build a giant monkey breeding facility. Another company called Charles River Laboratories is planning a facility in Brazoria County, Texas. That effort's on hold after local opposition.
Everybody, as far as I know, in Brazoria County is against it.
Charles River telling our local affiliate in part, it'll listen, cooperate, and work with the community as we assess next steps. In Bainbridge, tensions boiling over.
We felt like the divisiveness and the unrest in the community was outweighing the benefit of the project.
In February, the Bainbridge Development Authority voted to take back its support. Chris Hobby, Bainbridge's longtime city manager, resigned last month. Hobby declined an interview request, but told NBC News over email he was wary of being the face of every controversy. He says if he had the same opportunity again, he'd suggest passing on the project. The plan now tied up in the courts. The Reynolds, unsure if their new neighbors will be monkeys.
Safer Human Medicine needs to realize that they're not wanted here. They'll never be wanted here, and it would pay them to find them somewhere else to go if they can.
If it comes, it will turn our lives upside down.
Yasmin is joining us now. Okay, Yas, what's the next step in the fight? We know this court date tomorrow, right?
Yeah, you got to think about this, right? Because obviously COVID vaccine, development of COVID vaccine, wildly important on so many global implications, right? So important there. But do you want that in your backyard? And then, of course, you're hearing about how they're being treated when monkeys are actually part of kind of these test cases. Let's talk through the legal cases quickly, Hal, if we can, for a moment. All is really up in the air, right? You talked about what's happening tomorrow. The Georgia Appeals Court overturning or weighing to overturn the bond that was granted by Bainbridge there towards Safer Human Medicine appealing that. Then there is this idea of Safer Human Medicine putting out there saying, listen, it's not even going to be until 2025 that we're actually even going to be getting monkeys into this area, into this property. So there's that as well. But then you think about the treatment, right? The PETA concerns, for instance, that we covered there briefly, and what actually happens to these monkeys. Researchers are saying, okay, there's a shortage. The prices are sky high, and monkeys, it seems, are not being treated well. And a lot of folks out there advocating for monkeys. So maybe we need to find a different way for medical research that does not include primates. They're looking to do that, Hal. The problem is it's going to take quite some time. So answer overall, 30,000 foot above you, it's all up in the air right now.
Yasmin Vasugian, super interesting. Thank you very much. When we come back, Elon Musk's future with Tesla coming down to a vote about how many billions with a B, he's going to get paid. We'll explain in our breakdown. So 8 former employees from SpaceX, we're learning tonight, are now suing Elon Musk and his company, alleging Musk personally ordered their firing after they accused SpaceX of tolerating sex harassment in the workplace. The lawsuit says Musk runs his company in the dark ages, this is a quote here, treating women as sexual objects. SpaceX did not immediately respond to NBC's request for comment, but in the past, they've denied wrongdoing related to these firings. All of it coming just one day before the moment of truth from Musk at his other company, Tesla, where he makes a record $50 billion in his comp package. Some big shareholders say he doesn't deserve it, with a vote on that set for just hours from now. Here's Tom Costello.
A high-stakes vote worth billions, pitting the headline-grabbing Elon Musk and Tesla's board against some shareholders.
This could be a big slight if it doesn't go through.
I'm appalled by this.
The amount of money is outrageous.
It's all about a massive pay package worth a record $56 billion for a man who is already one of the richest in the world. And the vote could signal chinks in the billionaire's controversial armor. The package was actually approved back in 2018, but a judge struck it down in January of this year, calling it an unfathomable sum that was unfair to shareholders, adding it was negotiated by a board of directors beholden to Musk. The sum growing to such a huge number because the package was negotiated in stock options rather than cash. At the time, Tesla stock was worth much less, and the package amounted to about $2.6 billion. But after years of supercharged growth, now worth about 20 times that, more than any other in corporate America. Musk and the company say he deserves the huge payout.
His success is shared by all stockholders. You saw the value of your investments increase nearly 1,100%.
The vote is a test for Musk and whether shareholders can keep the famous CEO engaged with the company he helped build. He's already threatened to take his ideas, like developing his AI platforms, elsewhere if he isn't able to up a stake in Tesla.
AI is sort of like at least 80% likely to be beneficial.
The vote pits many institutional investors investors against one another. Florida's pension board supports the package, but the pension fund for California teachers disagrees. Other critics note Tesla's stock price has sputtered more recently and point to Musk's divided attention with stakes in SpaceX, X, and Neuralink, and his constant provocative social media presence. Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.
Our thanks to Tom Costello for that reporting. That's a wrap for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now. We're coming on the air with dangerous, record-setting rain making for nearly biblical scenes in Florida. I-95 shut down, an island cut off from the mainland, and our reporter on the ground with the forecast showing no sign of a slowdown. We'll take you there live. In Cuba, a show of force from Moscow with Russian ships docking less than 100 miles from the Florida coast. Our team's on the ground in Havana breaking down that message from Vladimir Putin. Plus, what the Fed's newest move late today means for your money as they're keeping rates at the highest they've been since Bootylicious was the #1 song in America. And in New York, police investigating what some call anti-Semitic vandalism at the homes of Jewish leaders. By police in that city say it might be part of a pattern. Then the major move from one of the biggest church groups in America, voting to oppose IVF in a real signal of where the conservative movement may be headed next. The domino effect in Washington and beyond later in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and we are watching tonight an unbelievable amount of rain drowning southern Florida, shutting down part of I-95 with storms and tornadoes sweeping the state. Take a look at this. This is a live look at our reporter's shot right now. That's a car up to its tires in the water, totally stuck. The rain still coming down. Further north, you've got a reported twister near Jupiter Island, meaning it's totally cut off now from the mainland because of trees like this one down at the entrance to the island. On Florida's west coast, there's some streets in Sarasota looking more like rivers. This fire truck's trying to get through, acting more like a boat. That city setting a record for the most rain it's ever gotten in a single hour. More than 8 inches dropping, flash floods coming with it. You see some of it here now. Some drivers we've seen trapped, hundreds of flights delayed, dozens canceled in Florida, with right now millions of people under a flood emergency across the southern half of the state. We're talking about cities like you see them here, Miami, West Palm, Marco Island, too. No relief expected until at least Friday for most of those spots. I want to bring in now Sam Brock, who is live for us on the ground in South Florida. Bill Cairns has our forecast in just a sec. Sam, I see you there, still soaking wet, and I'm sure that you have seen dozens of cars like the one you're standing in front of.
Everywhere, every road that you turn on, Hallie, and I got to tell you, you're talking about a pretty wide swath of land. For those who don't live in South Florida and they hear, Sarasota over here, West Palm over there, it's a 3-hour drive from Sarasota along sort of the panhandle aspect or sort of that peninsula area of Florida over to Miami, and then another 2 hours north out to Palm Beach County. So we're talking about a huge chunk of land. Yes, the cars are everywhere. So I'm at a shopping mall, Aventura. For those who like to frequent Miami, they definitely know this mall. Hundreds of people, if not thousands, on a daily basis. I'm looking at cars all over the place that are just like this. I actually saw a man, Hallie, about 10 minutes ago, climbing out of the window of his car to get behind it so he could start pushing it along with his girlfriend inside. And that's like one little snippet of the things that we've seen so far. People bailing water out of their cars. I saw a mom clutching her daughter, trying to carry her through a parking garage to get to their vehicle. She was obviously in distress. That is kind of standard for what we're seeing right now, given the rate of rain that has come down. Some parts of this area here in Miami have seen a foot plus of rain so far today. Hollywood, I believe, is the high water mark, but it's all over. It's not just there in Broward, all the way down to Dade, west out to Sarasota, Naples. All these areas have seen just an inundation. Another interesting point here, when you're talking about cars and how much it takes to flood them, I mean, it only takes 6 inches to be able to actually destabilize the car and have it start to stall. I'm 6'5", as we've talked before. I'm on the taller side. This water is almost up to my knees, so you're looking at probably 1.5 to 2 feet of water where I'm standing. This is a parking lot that has been turned into a swimming pool. Thankfully, we have not heard any reports to date of any injuries, but this is widespread severe weather that has frightened quite a lot of people here. And the weird thing, and I'll leave you with this, Hallie, is there are obviously warnings and conversations about saturating this entire area and seeing that carry over into the week and how, of course, there's going to be flooding. And yet I talk to people and they tell me, well, I didn't think it was going to be that bad. I went to work today, and they were shocked to find out that their cars are in the middle now of a pool of water. There's so much water. I just stood up on a median. You can't even see from your vantage point because there's so much water here. I'm standing on top of it right now. It's just everywhere, and you hope that you don't see a ton of more.
Who is it? Did they just try to drive through and got stuck? Like,
oh, no. Yeah, I assume you're talking about this car right here, this gentleman. And I got to be careful here because it gets deeper as I take a step forward.
Yeah, I don't want you to. You don't have to go talk to him, but I just like what? There's another car stuck right there. You know, it's tricky, obviously.
Just a quick snapshot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. About 10 cars within just the radius of 50 feet from where I'm standing is what I'm looking at right now, including, unfortunately, this guy, too.
At least he looks to be okay. Sam Brock, thank you for being there for us. You got to thank people.
For sure.
You don't want to make those moves, right? If you see a million cars stuck in the flooded water, maybe don't try to, to try to drive on through. So we'll let Sam talk to him. He seems to be at least physically okay. So we'll see if Sam is able to chat with him about being able to get out and get through to where he's going.
What language do you speak?
I'm going to leave Sam to do that for a second. Bill Cairns, let me bring you in as we keep an eye on that live shot here.
Wow.
It breaks your heart to see that happen, and that was the second car in just that live shot that we saw blast through behind Sam there.
And Florida is so flat, and these vehicles are trapped in water, and people are so used to just driving their cars through puddles, and they think they can get out of it somehow. And I just want everyone to know, I've seen 1,000 pictures. It's not just where Sam was. I mean, this is widespread in the Fort Lauderdale area, Hollywood Beach to North Miami. That area all looks just like the live shots we have. We're talking hundreds, I would say thousands of cars that are, similar to that, with water's probably towards the bottom of them. Water was splashing up into the engines. I mean, you just think about, we've reported a lot on the home insurance crisis in Florida. What's this going to do for the car insurance rates down there, too, when you had a huge event like this? And you see, just vehicles, they think they can drive through it until they can't. Oh, look at the...
Oh, no, Bill, what are we watching? This is stressing me
And you can
out.
see the bump right there. So there's a curb right there. So this little car, the little four-door sedan, it's going over the curb. It's like trying to follow the wake of the other car. Unbelievable. And Sam's trying to help get this guy and push him. Oh, boy. Well, Sam gets the medal for this one.
Well, it looks like it's working.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully Sam can see that it's a little lower. Hopefully he's heading towards shallower water. Sam's been there a long time now, so who knows? But that vehicle must be stalled because there's no lights on in the back. There's no brake lights. There's no signs so Sam's just doing that all on his own.
And Bill, as you say, and I mean, I am just totally blown away by, and this is now, I think, the fifth car in the foreground here, that pickup truck.
Yeah.
And, they sit a little higher, but trying to make their way, and another one there behind him, trying to make their way through all this.
And can you imagine driving by someone that's pushing a car like that and then hitting the gas and giving a big wave and a wake and not even stopping to help?
As you say, Bill, you've seen this. I mean, this kind of rain, it's not just here in Aventura where Sam is. And it looks like he got this driver here to some higher ground.
It is a little more shallow. And the rain rates are letting up a little bit, so that water level will start to drop so that, hopefully the vehicle, that vehicle won't get ruined any further. I don't think the water is going to go up much more than what it is right now all through this area. Wow, what a story.
And no relief in sight, right? I mean, this rain is going to come and come and come for the next 48 hours or so.
Yeah, let me, now that Sam's got that out, we'll try to get back with him in a little bit when he gets back.
Yeah, we'll keep that live shot close up.
Yeah, when we get him back. So, all right, so let me just familiarize what we're looking at here. This is Fort Lauderdale. This is Miami. This is Florida City. This is down towards Key Largo. All of the heavy rain for the last 4 hours had been from Naples across Alligator Alley, 75, heading into this region. So this is the area that has just gotten crushed with a ton of rain. And now as we go throughout the rest of today, it's sinking to the south. So that's why I was mentioning that the water levels are actually going to be dropping and going down as we go to it. And you can see the Sam will just finish there. So that's why I was saying the water level is going to be dropping. I've seen, Hallie, 3 different rain gauges that are now over a foot of rain since noon today. And you hear those stories. You hear like this is a 1 in 1,000 year flood or 1 in 500. The occurrence rate for this, what we've just witnessed and are witnessing, is about once in every 200 to once in every 300 years. That's the rainfall rates that we've been getting. So we'll keep monitoring this. Hopefully we can get Sam back up and we can find out the story of that gentleman. And unbelievable.
I think that I would just pull back the curtain because as we're doing the show, we don't have comms with Sam or his team right now because obviously they're in this situation. You saw the fluidity, so to speak, of Sam jumping into action there, helping out that guy. I'm a little bit stunned by what we just witnessed over the course of the last 8 minutes here with Sam watching that truck just try to blast on through, getting stuck, managed to push him to at least some higher water, which is good. That gentleman, I believe it's a gentleman driver.
The tail lights actually just came on there, so maybe there's some hope that the car's not completely dead.
Yeah, as you're watching people kind of walk back from that parking garage, this is, again, an outdoor mall, or at least a mall in Aventura, where people would typically be coming in, parking. There's that parking garage over in the corner there. But again, I don't think we have comms with his team at this point. We will obviously bring that back as soon as we can, just to hear from Sam what went down there. And I mean, I got to tell you, Bill, I don't want to over-index on this. But the point of this is the kind of scene that is playing out all over the place in southern Florida. I mean, this is just a micro look at a story that's happening again and again in places all around Miami.
Yeah, and you could see when we showed that shot to the left that you could see dry ground. So this is obviously a low area here by this intersection. So the cars are approaching it, and you can see the street just to the north of there. It looks like it's a little higher elevated. So people are driving, and they have no clue how deep this water is. But you would think that they'd see the stalled vehicles, and that may be a big heads up.
FedEx.
But yeah.
All right. People got to get their packages, I guess. Hopefully that FedEx truck made it through. We're going to keep an eye on this live shot. We're going to see what kind of comms we get. We're going to come back to it if we can. Bill, I'm going to ask you to stay close to a camera, too. Thank you very much, with obviously a lot unfolding in southern Florida. We're also going to keep an eye on those flight delays as well. We've got to get, though, to some breaking news out of Capitol Hill in just the last hour or so, because you have House Republicans now voting to hold the Attorney General in contempt of Congress. Here's what that means. It means they're basically asking the Justice Department to pursue a criminal case against the head of the Justice Department. This is after this guy, Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, refused to hand over audio of President Biden being interviewed by the special counsel who was investigating his handling of classified documents. Remember, it was back in February that this special counsel, Robert Hur, declined to indict the president for his handling of those documents after he was vice president, because he was afraid a jury would hesitate to convict, in words from the report, an elderly man, a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. NBC's Sahil Kapoor is following this one for us from Capitol Hill. What's the DOJ going to have to do now, right? Because the ball's in some ways in their court. Where does this go?
Yeah, the DOJ gets to decide what happens next, Hallie. This vote was 216 to 207, almost entirely along party lines. Just one member of the House broke ranks and voted with the other party. That was Dave Joyce, a center-right Republican from Ohio, voted with unanimous Democrats against this resolution. Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, has already issued a statement criticizing it. And let's show what he said. It says, quote, "It is deeply disappointing that this House of Representatives has turned a serious congressional authority into a partisan weapon. Today's vote," he says, "disregards the constitutional separation of powers. The Justice Department's need to protect its investigations and the substantial amount of information that we have provided the committee." Unquote. Now, Garland recently testified before Congress that they will not release the audio of President Biden's interview with the special counsel Robert Hur. He said they've released the full transcript already. There's no value from an investigative standpoint to be releasing the audio. And he said it would, in fact, have a chilling impact on future cooperation with the Justice Department if they were to publicize these sorts of things going forward. There's also an Office of Legal Counsel memo written last month, or not last month, I should say, or wait, last month, May 2024, that says this would not be an appropriate thing to do when executive privilege has been executed. Finally, Hallie, Speaker Mike Johnson did make his case for this. Let's play what he said.
Look, we did our job on the contempt, and I think it sends an important message. We're defending Article 1. We'll see what happens next, but, I mean, the House has to do its work, and I'm pleased with the outcome.
And the Republican Dave Joyce essentially agreed with Democrats when he said this was about scoring political points and not a serious effort. Hallie?
Sahil Kapoor live for us on the Hill with that. Thank you. Right as we were coming on the air, we also saw President Biden arriving in Italy with one of the goals, trying to figure out a way to get more money to Ukraine. Want to show you the president in just the last hour. There he is, getting off the plane. He's going to be at the G7 summit with his national security advisor on the plane over, telling reporters that these talks and the agreements they hope come from them are meant to send a message to Russia.
If Vladimir Putin thinks that he can outlast the coalition supporting Ukraine, he's wrong. He just cannot wait us out, and this agreement will show our resolve and continued commitment.
Monica Alba is live for us now from Italy. And Monica, while the president has a number of these international issues to work out, it's also striking that I think the last time we saw him stepping off of a plane was about 24 hours ago, almost exactly, in Wilmington, Delaware, hugging his son, who had just been convicted of that gun felony charge. It's that moment here. There is an emotional toll on the president, even as he has now this other set of issues on his plate as he lands in Italy.
Exactly, Hallie, and that was a shift in schedule. The president wasn't supposed to be going to Wilmington, Delaware, but he rerouted there to spend some time with Hunter, his son, of course, before they parted ways and Hunter left. And the president actually then spent the night with other family members, with the First Lady there in Wilmington, before returning to Washington very early this morning to then board that flight to come here to southern Italy to participate in this G7 conference with world leaders. And on the flight over here, the White House press secretary was asked about the possibility that even though President Biden in an interview has ruled out pardoning his son for this conviction, there was a question raised about whether he would, for instance, go through with a commutation of his sentence. And at the time, Karine Jean-Pierre said she hadn't spoken to the president since Hunter Biden's verdict came down yesterday about that. So she didn't want to get into any of the specifics, but it did raise this possibility. But a White House official tells us that that kind of discussion is really quite premature because we don't even have a sentencing date yet for these three felony gun charges. And there's a larger question here because the president did say in that statement yesterday after the verdict came down that he does respect this judicial process and the outcome. But there are, of course, these lingering questions about the emotional toll that all of this is taking on the president. We know that leading up to this point, this is certainly something that he does constantly worry about as a father, as a concerned parent, and not as president of the United States, while he is juggling these very weighty issues here on the world stage in Italy. Hallie.
Monica Alba live for us there in Italy. Thanks, Mon, for that. A show of force from Moscow tonight with 4 Russian ships arriving down in Cuba. Look at this. Here they are, these warships pulling into the harbor after some missile drills, apparently, in the Atlantic as they made their way to Havana. More military exercises, according to officials, are planned in the Caribbean in the next couple days. A spokesperson for the U.S. military says they've been actively monitoring these ships, that this is routine, that there's no direct threat or concern. Ed Augustin is in Havana. He's joining us now. So this may not be a direct threat or a concern, but it is certainly interesting given the location of a few hundred miles off the U.S. coastline and the timing here. Talk us through the message Russia's trying to send.
I think the message is crystal clear, as one military analyst put it the other day. The message that Russia is trying to send to the United States is, from their point of view, you can cause us all sorts of problems in our spheres of influence. You can do huge military drills, like the drill that NATO performed last month with 90,000 soldiers and over 100 tanks. But we can also project power in your backyard. I'm speaking to you from Havana, Cuba. Cuba is only 90 nautical miles from the United States. And, you know, if we're going to think in classic big power terms solidly, historically at least, in the United States sphere of influence, at least before the Cuban Revolution. So this is tit for tat. Russia, to put it mildly, very, very unhappy about U.S. actions in Ukraine. And given the Biden administration's decision 2 weeks ago to allow some U.S. weapons to hit some Russian targets in Russian territory, this, I think, and most military analysts are interpreting it this way, is a response. We can be a nuisance to you as well.
And Ed, real quick, on the drills that Russia's doing, what do we know more about them? What can we say?
There have been military drills. As this flotilla was crossing the Atlantic, there was artillery fire, there have been simulations, there have been military drills leading up to the flotilla docking in Havana today.
Ed Augustin live for us there in Havana, Cuba. Ed, we're glad to have you. Thank you very much for being with us. To a sensational murder trial now over the death of a Boston police officer that could be in the hands of a jury relatively soon. But first tonight, the lead investigator admitting under oath he called the defendant a whack job. Massachusetts State Trooper Michael Proctor acknowledging now that his comments were, in his words, juvenile and unprofessional, but he insists they had no influence on the investigation into the death of Officer John O'Keefe. Still, what he said about the defendant, Karen Reed, raising some questions on whether Proctor was biased in his investigation. Reed has pleaded not guilty to second-degree murder in the 2022 death of her then-boyfriend, O'Keefe. Prosecutors say she hit him with her car and left him for dead after a night of drinking. Her defense team argues that she's been framed in a pretty far-reaching conspiracy involving other law enforcement officers. Rahima Ellis is joining us now. A lot to unpack here, right? And partly it's because it involves the death of an officer outside the home of another police officer, and now these comments from the lead investigator.
Yeah, it's all very messy, and I should set the scene that this was 2 years ago, 2022, and it happened on a cold, snowy night in January up in the Boston area. Now, investigators say that the couple's relationship had been kind of rocky before this tragedy, but they had gone out for drinking the night of the tragedy. She drops him off at a friend's house, as you point out. This was the home of a retired Boston police sergeant. And later they said that the officer, John O'Keefe, that he died as a result of blunt force trauma and hypothermia. They say they also found that her tail light on her car was broken, and pieces of that tail light were found in the yard where the officer's body was found. She insists that she did nothing wrong. Her defense says she's the victim of a cover-up, including from that investigator, the lead investigator, the state trooper, and his name is Michael Proctor. She says they were exchanging text messages, including one that said, "Officers are involved. This involves cops. We should wrap this up quickly." Hallie?
Rahima Ellis following all of it for us on that just really interesting case that's getting a lot of attention. Rahima, thank you very much. Coming up here on the show, a lot more to get to here tonight, including, of course, did we just see that? Did that just happen? The messy scene in South Florida. We're working on getting comms from Sam Brock back so he can tell us about his end of this pretty remarkable video coming up in just a sec. Police in New York tonight investigating what local leaders are calling an abhorrent act of anti-Semitism after the homes of the Brooklyn Museum's Jewish leaders were vandalized. Look at this door covered in red paint. One banner calling the museum's director a white supremacist Zionist. Police say they're looking for more than a dozen people who could be involved. Antonia Hilton is following this story for us. The NYPD says these incidents may be part of a bigger pattern that they're seeing.
That's right, Hallie. They're investigating this, what happened last night, but also a series of incidents that they say have happened all over the city, not just relegated to one borough or one community here. They are looking at and tracking this activity that often involves the use of red paint, red spray paint, the kind of banners that you saw in those images there, and they've happened in properties all around New York. And they're looking for the suspects that they believe could be connected to what happened, not just to the director, the leader of the Brooklyn Museum named Ann Pasternak, but also several Jewish members of the leadership team of the board there. The mayor, Eric Adams, released a statement this morning, not mincing words, saying this is not peaceful protest or free speech. This is a crime, and it's overt, unacceptable anti-Semitism. Other leaders, including the governor and local Brooklyn-level leaders, have released similar statements as well today. You know, this is really reflective of the fact that these cultural institutions have become sites of conflict as the war rages on. Just days ago, the Brooklyn Museum was the site of another protest, and at one point, the protesters, demonstrators actually entered the Brooklyn Museum. They occupied it for a period of time. They unfurled banners. They marched and chanted until the NYPD came and responded. And while we don't know that that group is necessarily connected to what happened here last night, what we do know is this has really become a center of this kind of activity here, and the tensions abroad very much hitting here at home, and with Jewish community members and leaders here in New York saying that they're quite shaken up and fearful about all of this. As the ADL says, they're seeing these incidents really balloon across the country, and New York is no exception, Hallie.
Antonia Hilton, thank you very much for that. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, Illinois police say 3 sheriff's deputies are in good condition at the hospital after a shooting. Officials say they were making an emergency visit to a home after getting a call about somebody who had threatened both suicide and homicide. The suspect was also shot and taken to the hospital. A plane missing for more than half a century, now reportedly found in Vermont's Lake Champlain. A small corporate jet carrying 5 people disappeared not long after taking off from the Burlington airport back in 1971. After more than a dozen failed searches, a team somehow has now found the plane not far from where it went missing. Number 4, North Dakota voters passing a measure that would put in place age limits on congressional candidates. This bans people from running for a House or Senate seat there if they could end up being 81 years old by December 31st of the year, immediately preceding the end of the term. Bottom line, they're capping it, basically. It's believed to be the first of its kind in the country, but it is also certainly expected to be challenged in court. Number 5, the Fed today keeping interest rates where they are for now, forecasting only 1 rate cut this year. At one point, there were hopes there could be 3 rate cuts. It's coming after new numbers out today showed inflation slowing down a bit. The markets seem to like it, with the S&P and NASDAQ hitting new records. The Dow closing down, but just a little bit. Also tonight, the country's biggest Protestant group voting today against the use of IVF. We're talking about the Southern Baptist Church saying that frozen embryos like those used in vitro fertilization, are children. It is a significant sign of where conservative evangelicals may take the fight over reproductive rights next. A fight that may come to a head in Washington, too, with Democrats getting ready to vote to protect IVF, to put Republicans in a tough political spot, considering polls show IVF is broadly popular across party lines. Julie Sirkin is joining us now. So, Julie, talk us through this vote on IVF by the Southern Baptist Convention. It seems like more than anything, it is a major signal of where this fight's going.
Yeah, not only a signal, Hallie, but also yet another example and exactly why Democratic lawmakers behind this push to codify protections for IVF into law tell me they need to act, that Congress needs to act. Look at this.
Julie Eshelman and her husband, who's in the Army Reserves, had their 2-year-old daughter through in vitro fertilization.
When we moved from Washington to Arizona and from Arizona to Illinois, we didn't have to worry about whether we'd be able to access IVF.
They kept their frozen embryos in storage during deployment. But after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, everything changed.
Are we going to be able to access IVF in our new state? Are we going to have to pay to travel out of state?
Alabama was their next potential destination, and the state Supreme Court at the time effectively banned the procedure, deeming frozen embryos are babies.
Our military families don't have control over where they live.
IVF restarted in the state, but not before causing a political firestorm, making access to the procedure a key issue. That's why a trio of Democratic senators pushed for a vote to protect the procedure nationally and broaden eligibility for service members. For Tammy Duckworth, it's personal.
I struggled for 10 years post my deployment to Iraq, trying to start a family, and it was only through the miracle of IVF that I have my 2 little girls.
Their bill would prevent states from imposing IVF restrictions, expand access for service members and veterans, and require insurance plans to cover fertility treatments.
It's not about the petty politics. It's about the people in our communities that are really struggling.
But just like Democrats' efforts to protect access to contraception, this bill will likely fail.
Some people are looking at these attempts by Democrats and are calling them messaging bills. What's your response to that?
They're a message to the American people that you have a right to IVF. They're a message to the American people that we believe Roe should be the law of the land. They're a message to women in this country that they have the right to make their own health care decisions.
The majority of Republicans say they too support IVF, but will probably oppose the Democrats' bill, saying it goes too far.
I clearly support IVF. I have an ad supporting IVF. I have a daughter going through IVF.
Alabama Senator Katie Britt, outspoken after her state's actions earlier this year.
We strongly support continued nationwide access to in vitro fertilization.
Trying to pass her bill with Senator Ted Cruz tonight. It would withhold key funding for states that ban IVF. But it says nothing about potential legal consequences of discarding non-viable embryos essential to the procedure. But Democrats blocking it.
That's why I object. Their bill is very dangerous.
And is a step backwards.
If Congress can't find a solution, Julie's family has a lot to think about.
And that could mean that my husband would have to leave the service.
Which sounds like a really tough decision.
Yeah. I mean, he's been in 14 years. I am so proud of the work that he does for our country.
Julie, you hear, and in those conversations that you had, especially with her, the stakes of this, the stakes of what's happening where you are on Capitol Hill. So what is next then? Is this just a function of waiting until the election in November to see who ends up in the White House, where this fight goes?
Well, unfortunately for women like Julie, unfortunately, yes, that is exactly what is happening here. I asked the Democratic senators this very question yesterday. I said, with the Democratic president in the White House, with Democrats in control of the Senate, is this really your last best shot? And they said, yes, it is. And that is only emboldened by this text I got literally a couple of seconds ago from Katie Britt's office. They circulated a statement that we received first, signed by all Republican senators, nearly all, if not one lacking. It says in part, quote, that this attempt by Democrats, this IVF bill is nothing more than, quote, a partisan campaign of false fear-mongering intended to mislead and confuse the American people. They go on to say that IVF is legal across the country, although we have seen attacks to it, including what happened today, that vote from the Southern Baptist Church leaders that you've mentioned there at the top, Hallie. So certainly this is a very live issue, and the two sides could not be more far apart.
Yeah, a lot of developments on IVF today. Julie Sirkin, we're glad to have you covering all of it there from Washington. Appreciate it. When we come back, you're taking a look now at some live pictures from out of Iraq, what we know about a fire burning out of control there right now. Then, Sam Brock, back up and running. We're going to be talking to our chief car-pushing correspondent right after the break. So if you've been watching our show for the last half an hour, you probably saw this moment here. We're talking about this unbelievable flooding and rain in South Florida. This is Sam Brock during his live shot. This car, this SUV, drives through, stalls out, and here's Sam trying to push this guy to safety, essentially. We have seen now, not just in Aventura, but all over South Florida, a ton of rain falling. In Sarasota on the West Coast, something like 8 inches in just about an hour. And in the foreground of this video, you can actually see some other cars trying to push through. The issue here, of course, is that this area of South Florida is extremely flat. So once the water saturates the ground, it's limestone, it's really tough for that water to drain away. And this is creating impacts, having a domino effect all across the state. You have hundreds of flights delayed. You have dozens of them canceled. And we brought back Sam Brock because, Sam, we lost your comms there in this moment that we're watching. What in the world happened? What?
So I think you're referring to what happened during our last conversation, Hallie. Yeah. You know, obviously there is a lot of turmoil going on, a lot of people not exactly sure whether or not to drive through this. I can tell you several feet of water, even if you're in an SUV, not a good idea. One gentleman live on our airways discovered that. And this is an area that is very diverse. You have people that are from South America, Central America, Haiti. This gentleman was from Haiti, does not speak much English. I was trying to communicate with him. And when it was very clear he was not going to be able to get his car out, figured why not roll up the sleeves and see if we can push it along. I had him put the car in neutral, and I was able to at least glide it out of the center area, which I suspect is the video that you're looking at right now. His situation is a predicament that many people are finding themselves in tonight. I mean, just in this one area where I'm standing in front of a mall, you got to be careful. By the way, that car made it, right? But he didn't go through the middle. But again, the bottom line here is if you see standing water, don't try to drive through it, right? How many times do we hear people with backgrounds in meteorology or just common sense say that's not a good idea, and yet people continue to do it? But you're looking just right now within this horizon where I'm standing at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 or so cars that are stranded. I'm seeing people, Hallie, that are just bailing water out of their cars. One guy that climbed out of his window to then go out and try to push it along. There's people here that are walking barefoot, and they obviously don't know what's back there, but they just are soaked and drenched. It's a general level of discomfort. We're just trying to help one person at a time if we can, Hallie, and maybe I did a little bit of that tonight.
I think you did, Sam. That driver was okay? Did his car turn back on, or where is he now?
That's the problem. So the next chapter in this is his car is not turned back on. At least he's not in the middle of this, but yeah, he's gonna need a tow for sure.
I mean, I-95 may be closed down not far from where you are, but it looks like a highway behind you, Sam Brock. Listen, good luck to all those people. I guess that's all you got to say. Sam, thank you so much. We're glad that you came back for us. Glad that you are okay, too. Hero Award for Sam Brock, ladies and gentlemen, our senior national car-saving correspondent here for us in South Florida. Thank you, friend. Appreciate it. That's right. You can own that for a minute, Sam. Thanks. To Georgia now, and the longest criminal trial in that state's history that could be heading totally off the rails after the judge sentenced a famous rapper's lawyer to jail time after a viral moment rocketed this long-running case back into the headlines. Here's the deal. It all stems from a beef between Young Thug's attorney and the judge in the case after the judge held a closed-door meeting with one of the prosecution's star witnesses. Now, the lawyer, the defense attorney, had a big problem with that, Brian Steele. He says in court, well, wait a second, the defense team should have been there, or at least should have been aware of that meeting. And that's when things really blew up, with the judge slamming Steele, demanding to know how he even found out about the meeting in the first place. Listen.
How did you get that information supposedly from my chambers? Did somebody tell you? I'm not. You should have told me. Sir, I'm going to hold you in contempt if you don't tell me who this. Tell me who this information was coming from. I don't want to be held in contempt. Well, then answering that question.
Young Thug's lawyer did not give in, did not share his source, so the judge in the case found him in contempt of court, had him arrested. Look at him. He's taken off his jacket, taken off his tie before getting walked out by an officer. That moment, that visual went viral, as did this one, when Steele said if he has to report to jail, he wants to end up in the same cell as his client so they can keep working on the case. Young Thug, real name Jeffrey Williams, is facing charges he led an Atlanta-based criminal gang and oversaw a conspiracy to commit murder, armed robbery, and deal drugs. NBC legal analyst Danny Cevallos is joining us now. I'm going to ask you to put on your defense attorney hat here. Who is out of line? Is it the judge? Is it the attorney?
Unfortunately, Hallie, my defense attorney hat is on way too tight all the time. I'm probably biased here, but this seems to be such a clear case of right and wrong in that the attorney is right, the judge is wrong. And here's why. Even if this ex parte meeting was appropriate, which I can't see how it was, and ex parte means it's out of the hearing of other people. Other people were excluded, namely the defense. It was apparently between the judge and the witness and the state, the prosecutors. That's what I'm understanding. If that's the case, if I'm a defense attorney in that case, I've got a real problem with that. And so did this defense counsel. And instead of saying, hey, explaining the judge why he had this meeting or explaining what happened, he instead says, who told you about that? And then jailed him for not revealing his sources. So, I mean, even if the underlying ex parte meeting was acceptable and proper, the whole, where did you hear that? I'm going to jail you unless you tell me who told you this. That just seems inappropriate as well to me.
This has really blown up. I mean, the moment where he takes off his jacket and tie is everywhere. The moment where he says, well, then put me in a cell with my client while I'm serving my time on the weekends for this contempt charge. Is it possible that there could be a mistrial because of this moment, because of what the judge did, because of all this?
Yes, and the judge isn't likely to grant that mistrial. After all, it would be an implication that he did something wrong. Yeah. But on appeal, this is probably going to be a major issue. You know, there's a lot of crazy stuff that's been going on in this trial. This may be the craziest. But again, even if the underlying ex parte meeting was somehow acceptable, this whole fiasco of jailing the attorney, because how can the defendant proceed if his attorney is in jail? Yes, he's in on the weekends, but he was taken out of court that day. There's a lot of really, really problematic issues cropping up as a result of the judge's insistence on jailing one of the defendant's chosen counsel.
What's interesting here, and part of why this case initially caught my attention as, you know, a political reporter here in Washington, is that the charges Young Thug faces are based on the same criminal racketeering law that former President Trump is facing in his own Georgia election interference case. And if you look at Young Thug's trial so far, we've seen a 10-month jury selection for this, a list of 400 potential witnesses, a schedule that one of the attorneys said could push this whole trial into 2027. Is it your sense that this perhaps may be a blueprint for the former president's case, if and when that finally gets going?
Yes, and remember, the decision to bring these charges against YSL and the charges against Donald Trump were made by the same district attorney, who has made the choice in each of these cases to bring sweeping charges against a large number of defendants, probably hoping that some of them would plead out, and that's happened in both cases. It's happened in the YSL case. Quite a few defendants have pleaded out. But this is a really complex case, and it's going to last years. So Donald Trump's case is probably going to take just as long, or at least close to as long. It's chaos down there in Fulton County.
Danny Cevallos, super interesting. Thank you so much for being there for us for that analysis. Appreciate it. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our teams around the world have done it for you. Here's a look at what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of Iraq, you're looking at live pictures of what is apparently a fire at an oil refinery burning out of control in Erbil. We're seeing some early reports of some injuries there. We're going to keep watching it. We're going to keep an eye on it. We'll keep you posted with any updates. Out of Canada, the wreck of a ship that an iconic explorer died on more than a century ago has just been found off the coast of Newfoundland. That's according to the Royal Canadian Geographical Society. This is the sonar image you're about to see showing the ship Quest. Ernest Shackleton, the legendary Antarctic explorer, died on that ship back in 1922. The vessel stayed in use until the 60s when it was damaged and sank. An international team of shipwreck hunters and historical experts discovered the wreckage, with one of them calling it profoundly moving. And out of South Korea, K-pop star Jin from BTS discharged from the army today after 18 months of service. There he is. He's being serenaded by another member of BTS playing the saxophone. Jin is the first member of BTS to wrap up his mandatory service. The rest of them have all put their music careers on hold, too. The band is expected to reunite next year, much to the delight of K-pop fans everywhere. Coming up, tensions in a Georgia town over, quite literally, monkey business. What our team found when they went there in the original. To tonight's original now, with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tomorrow, a Georgia court's considering a case that could topple a huge monkey breeding project that has folks in a small city there up in arms. Basically, there's a plan to breed 30,000 monkeys for medical research. Researchers say they need it to make scientific breakthroughs. But folks in town say no way. And they won't let the monkeys on their turf without a fight. Here's Yasmin Vasukian.
Soon, a small Georgia city could have twice as many monkeys as people if a massive breeding facility housing 30,000 long-tailed macaques comes to town. And some residents of Bainbridge, Georgia, are not happy about it.
We're looking at a jungle, noise, stink.
The Reynolds' home borders the land where the facility will be built.
This is my home here, and it's approximately 400 feet from the monkey house that will be over here.
City officials think the $400 million project run by a company called Safer Human Medicine will be an economic boon. Rick McCaskill helped broker the deal.
It's a tremendous investment, and it's a tremendous amount of good paying jobs.
When lifelong resident June Faircloth found out about the plan, she was stunned.
To me, it feels like somebody's going to drop a bomb right in the middle of everything that we've worked and built. We can't sit back and let it happen.
She and some others coordinated with PETA.
There's a monkey facility that's trying to be established, and we're going to make sure that it doesn't happen.
Armed with signs and pins and flyers, June and others set out to stop the monkey farm, organizing online and in person.
Now a future monkey farm could be my neighbor.
They've got a long list of fears, like monkeys escaping, which has occasionally happened at other breeding facilities here in the United States, as well as river contamination and disease. Safer Human Medicine declined interview requests, responding over email that all waste will be contained in its facilities and sent to the city wastewater treatment plant. It also says most noise will stay within the facility, and there will not be a noticeable smell coming from it.
Is it possible to miss diseases they might be carrying?
Absolutely.
Ed Newcomer, a former special agent for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, tells us inspections are mostly paperwork.
Fish and Wildlife Service law enforcement inspector will try to do a physical inspection of the primates just to make sure the numbers are correct, the ages look appropriate, and if there's any evidence that they're, wild caught when they're declared as captive.
Captive monkeys are preferred for research. Wild monkeys can carry viruses like herpes B. Safer Human Medicine says it will not be using wild-caught animals. It says the monkeys will come from breeding facilities in Asia, but did not specify where. Long-tailed macaques are native to Southeast Asia, but for a while, the U.S. got many long-tailed macaques from China, which imported them from other countries, then exported them. But in 2020, it cut off its long-tailed macaque exports, something researchers say contributed to a monkey shortage here in the U.S. and said the cost of monkeys soaring.
This is a business effort to try to capitalize on that shortage.
While non-human primates make up less than 1% of animals in biomedical research, monkey studies have helped develop COVID vaccines and a drug now used for kidney transplants. In research studies, they are sometimes put to death.
It's a real tragic life for these primates. They may live their entire life moving from one research project to the other, being exposed to pathogens, having experiments done on them, being poked and prodded. It makes you wonder whether it's better for them to be euthanized after their first experiment or go through a life of torture.
Safer Human Medicine's not the only one trying to build a giant monkey breeding facility. Another company called Charles River Laboratories is planning a facility in Brazoria County, Texas. That effort's on hold after local opposition.
Everybody, as far as I know, in Brazoria County is against it.
Charles River telling our local affiliate in part, it'll listen, cooperate, and work with the community as we assess next steps. In Bainbridge, tensions boiling over.
We felt like the divisiveness and the unrest in the community was outweighing the benefit of the project.
In February, the Bainbridge Development Authority voted to take back its support. Chris Hobby, Bainbridge's longtime city manager, resigned last month. Hobby declined an interview request, but told NBC News over email he was wary of being the face of every controversy. He says if he had the same opportunity again, he'd suggest passing on the project. The plan now tied up in the courts. The Reynolds unsure if their new neighbors will be monkeys.
Safer Human Medicine needs to realize that they're not wanted here. They'll never be wanted here. And it would pay them to find them somewhere else to go if they can.
If it comes, it will turn our lives upside down.
Yasmin is joining us now. Okay, Yas, what's the next step in the fight? We know this court date tomorrow, right?
Yeah, you got to think about this, right? Because obviously COVID vaccine, development of COVID vaccine, wildly important on so many global implications, right? So important there. But do you want that in your backyard? And then, of course, you're hearing about how they're being treated when monkeys are actually part of kind of these test cases. Let's talk through the legal cases quickly, Hal, if we can, for a moment. All is really up in the air, right? You talked about what's happening tomorrow. The Georgia Appeals Court overturning or weighing to overturn the bond that was granted by Bainbridge there towards Safer Human Medicine appealing that. Then there is this idea of Safer Human Medicine putting out there saying, listen, it's not even going to be until 2025 that we're actually even going to be getting monkeys into this area, into this property. So there's that as well. But then you think about the treatment, right? The PETA concerns, for instance, that we covered there briefly, and what actually happens to these monkeys. Researchers are saying, okay, there's a shortage. The prices are sky high, and monkeys, it seems, are not being treated well. And a lot of folks out there advocating for monkeys. So maybe we need to find a different way for medical research that does not include primates. They're looking to do that, Hal. The problem is it's going to take quite some time. So answer overall, 30,000 foot above you, it's all up in the air right now.
Yasmin Vasugian, super interesting. Thank you very much. When we come back, Elon Musk's future with Tesla coming down to a vote about how many billions with a B, he's going to get paid. We'll explain in our breakdown. So 8 former employees from SpaceX, we're learning tonight, are now suing Elon Musk and his company, alleging Musk personally ordered their firing after they accused SpaceX of tolerating sex harassment in the workplace. The lawsuit says Musk runs his company in the dark ages, this is a quote here, treating women as sexual objects. SpaceX did not immediately respond to NBC's request for comment, but in the past, they've denied wrongdoing related to these firings. All of it coming just one day before the moment of truth from Musk at his other company, Tesla, where he makes a record $50 billion in his comp package. Some big shareholders say he doesn't deserve it, with a vote on that set for just hours from now. Here's Tom Costello.
The Elon straight ahead.
A high-stakes vote worth billions, pitting the headline-grabbing Elon Musk and Tesla's board against some shareholders.
This could be a big slight if it doesn't go through.
I'm appalled by this.
The amount of money is outrageous.
It's all about a massive pay package worth a record $56 billion for a man who is already one of the richest in the world. And the vote could signal chinks in the billionaire's controversial armor. The package was actually approved back in 2018, but a judge struck it down in January of this year, calling it an unfathomable sum that was unfair to shareholders, adding it was negotiated by a board of directors beholden to Musk. The sum growing to such a huge number because the package was negotiated in stock options rather than cash. At the time, Tesla stock was worth much less, and the package amounted to about $2.6 billion. But after years of supercharged growth, now worth about 20 times that, more than any other in corporate America. Musk and the company say he deserves the huge payout.
His success is shared by all stockholders. You saw the value of your investments increase nearly 1,100%.
The vote is a test for Musk and whether shareholders can keep the famous CEO engaged with the company he helped build. He's already threatened to take his ideas, like developing his AI platforms, elsewhere if he isn't able to up a stake in Tesla.
AI is sort of like at least 80% likely to be beneficial.
The vote pits many institutional investors against one another. Florida's pension board supports the package, but the pension fund for California teachers disagrees. Other critics note Tesla's stock price has sputtered more recently and point to Musk's divided attention with stakes in SpaceX, X, and Neuralink, and his constant provocative social media presence. Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.
Our thanks to Tom Costello for that reporting. That's a wrap for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.